these polls that are coming out, the Fox News Power Rankings were going to show, like, this race is back to being very, very close. Trump has a slight lead in certain places, but she's gaining. So what do you think the Trump team should be doing maybe this week to try to do what you just said?
Well, it's just like every Sunday you play a different team. She has a different offense. She's out working. She plays differently, that Biden is no longer there. All Trump has to do is win Pennsylvania and Georgia. He doesn't even have to win Nevada and Arizona, and he's the president. So she has to play defense in all those places. I think she made a wrong pick when it came to VP. She'd be in a different place if she had Shapiro. But it's going to be a race, and you've got to make this race not on personalities. Stop questioning the size of her crowds and start questioning her position when it comes to what did she do as Attorney General on crime. This is a perfect person to run against. You thought John Kerry was a flip-flopper? She is the biggest flip-flop with the most extreme positions, and you got a short time frame to do it. So don't sit back, get out there and start making the case and use her own words to do it to her.
Just like most Republican political minds surrounding Donald Trump, Kevin McCarthy took a quick break from kissing his ass to tell him to stop focusing on his obsession with lies about crowd sizes. Maybe it was the MLK comparison that forced him to temporarily remove their lips from his cheeks.
Never see the picture of the crowd, the biggest crowd I've ever spoken. I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people. If not, we had more. And they said he had 1 million people, but I had 25,000 people. But when you look at the exact same picture, and everything's the same because it was the fountains, the whole thing, all the way back to from Lincoln to Washington, and you look at it, and you look at the picture of his crowd, my crowd, we actually had more people. They said I had 25,000, and he had 1 million people, and I'm okay with it because I liked Dr. Martin Luther King.
Or maybe it was the ever-changing numbers that switched 3 times in 1 minute.
Listen, I had 107,000 people in New Jersey. You didn't report it. I'm so glad you asked. What did she have yesterday? 2,000 people? If I ever had 2,000 people, you'd say my campaign is finished. It's so dishonest, the press. And here's a great example. I had in Michigan recently 25,000 people, and 25,000 people we just couldn't get them in. We had in Harrisburg 25,000 people, and 20,000 people couldn't get in. We had so many. Nobody ever mentions that. When she gets 1,500 people, and I saw it yesterday on ABC, which they said, oh, the crowd was so big. I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size, and no, they never say the crowd was big. That's why I'm always saying turn around the cameras. I'm so glad you asked that. I think it's so terrible when you say, well, she has 1,500 people, 1,000 people, and they talk about, oh, the enthusiasm. Let me tell you, we have the enthusiasm.
This guy went from Harris having 2,000 supporters to 1,500, and his crowd size went from 107,000 to hundreds of thousands of people in seconds. Since he convinced his minions at his rallies, where supporters go to receive their hate ration, that was the measuring stick to determine that he was cheated out of the 2020 election. He just can't stop going back to that well. He even took some guy's post that claimed Harris's rally was full of AI-generated supporters, and he added this. Has anyone noticed that Kamala cheated at the airport? There was nobody at the plane, and she AI'd it and showed a massive crowd of so-called followers. But they didn't exist. She was turned in by a maintenance worker at the airport when he noticed the fake crowd picture, but there was nobody there, later confirmed by the reflection of the mirror-like finish on the vice presidential plane. She's a cheater. She had nobody waiting, and the crowd looked like 10,000 people. Same thing is happening with her fake crowds at her speeches. This is the way Democrats win elections, by cheating and, even worse, at the ballot box. She should be disqualified because the creation of a fake image is election interference. Anyone who does that will cheat at anything. And since no one could get to him in the toilet where he probably was posting memes, he followed it up with another. Look, we caught her with a fake crowd. There was nobody there. And I guess to keep Trump's campaign fixated on their commitment to his original day one issue of crowd sizes, the Harris campaign posted a video of the crowd in Michigan to get MAGA to brainstorm for more elements of their conspiracy theories. So far, the Trump campaign's message since Harris became the Democratic candidate is to call her racist and misogynistic names, focus on her laughter, complain that she's even in the race, while at the same time claiming that she's easy to beat, And now their argument for inflation, immigration, wages, healthcare, women's reproductive rights, housing, and safety is
crowd, the biggest crowd I've ever spoken. I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me.
So it's not too surprising to hear these other numbers that Trump will also refuse to believe.
We can just simplify it by this. Who is better liked, right? What is the net favorable view of these different candidates? And, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance here, we know, I've been talking about J.D. Vance's net negative favorability rating. That is, more people view him unfavorably than favorably. Donald Trump has the same thing. I will point out this is among the higher numbers for Trump, but still, he's underwater here at -7 points. Jump over to the Democratic side with me, if you will. Take a look here. Kamala Harris is actually better liked by more voters than she is disliked at a +2 net favorable rating. And then Tim Walz here at a +11 rating. It's as simple as this. Politics is about being liked, and the Democratic ticket is better liked than the Republican ticket.
Trump hates those stats so much, he's refused to try to appeal to more than bloodthirsty cultists and multimillionaires and billionaires. He's decided to go with posting more things that make more people dislike him. I'm doing really well in the presidential race, leading in almost all the real polls. And this, despite the Democrats unprecedentedly changing their primary winning candidate, Sleepy Joe Biden, midstream, with a candidate, Kamala Harris, who failed to get even a single primary vote and was the first out of 15 Democrat candidates to quit the race. I did great in 2016 and won. Did much better in 2020, getting many millions more votes than 16. But this, 2024, is thus far my best campaign. The most enthusiasm and spirit, etc. My team is doing a great job despite the constant 8-year obstacle of dealing with the fake news and low self-esteem leakers. We're going to win big and take our country back from the radical left losers, fascists, and communists. We will very quickly make America great again. Let's see how that strategy is working out.
Trust more on the issue that's most important to you. This is among likely voters. In June, we're going to look at a national number. Look at this. We see Donald Trump at 50%. Look at Joe Biden at just 40%. So Donald Trump had a 10-point lead on the issue that folks said was most important to them. They could list any issue. Jump forward now to Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. What do we see? We see a completely different ballgame. We see Harris at 50%. We see Donald Trump at 48%. Within the margin of error, but a 10-point advantage for Trump. I mean, you're going, this is the type of stuff that campaigns dream about. And for the Donald Trump, nightmares about. Look at this, Harris now with the 2-point advantage. This is significant movement. This is the type of movement that turns losers, which Joe Biden was against Donald Trump, into winners, or at least leaders in the case of Kamala Harris. So the Harris campaign, their messaging, or the messaging against them, is not working for the Trump campaign, and the messaging from the Harris campaign is working against the Trump campaign.
What's worse is that Trump isn't even refusing to listen to everyone. He just seems to be listening and paying attention to political figures and pundits that he hates, which pisses him off even more.
He is, as I've been saying, a narcissistic sociopath, a pathological narcissist, and a sociopath as defined by the American Psychiatric Association. And these are, historians will tell you, the traits of authoritarian dictators throughout history. I mean, it's like Hitler, when Hitler was moving around divisions that didn't exist in the last 10 days of the war in the Führer bunker. I mean, he has completely lost it.
He's opened the door for his former senior counsel, Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband, George Conway, to accurately depict him as the weakest version of Hitler. And whether his most loyal supporters believe those characterizations or not, his allies in conservative media and politics are relentlessly trying to steer him clear of it.
Let me clarify this. If this is an issue-based campaign, Trump still has the advantage. Not only am I not calling him out, she is winning right now. She is absolutely ahead.
Trump's frustrated. He's arguing crowd size, claiming her numbers are inflated by AI. He's miffed that Harris has taken over his no tax on tips idea. He's actually looking back to 2020, telling a big donor, we've got to stop the steal all over again.
But remember, this is happening before the convention. She's going to get a bounce from that convention, and she's getting pre-convention bounce. If it's about issues, Trump is much more likely to be successful. If it's about attributes, Harris is much more likely to be successful because, quite frankly, people like her more than they like him.
Trump doesn't need feast now. He needs votes. And the current rally formula is simply not sufficiently focused on the very stark policy differences. It's
something that if he's watching this right now, his head is exploding. And that's part of the problem.
This is according to the New York Times, which also reports he used foul language to describe his opponent. Not a good idea if you want to attract suburban women who can make or break your campaign.
Instead, when Trump attacks Harris personally rather than on policy, Harris's support among swing voters rises, particularly among women. It's just a fact of life right now.
He has lost touch with the people that he needs, and she is in perfect touch. Look at the rallies. Look at how she relates to them.
2 weeks ago, it seemed the election was Trump's to lose. Now it seems he's got to fight to win, and he hasn't quite figured out how to do it.
He hasn't quite figured out how to do it. He's lost and very flustered around women that refuse to prop him up despite his obvious shortcomings and lack of relatability. You know, being publicly stunned and aggravated by a simple challenge is revealing a lot about who he really is.
How did I do with the debate the other night?
Oh, fantastic.
Kicked that old broken down pile of crap.
Yeah.
It's a bad guy. He just quit, you know. He's quitting the race.
Is that right?
Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. She's so pathetic.
It's so amazing.
It's just so bad. So
I just can't imagine.
But can you imagine that guy with dealing with Putin and the president of China, who's a fierce person? He's a fierce man, a very tough guy. And they see him, they probably he can't. But they just announced he's probably quitting.
Good.
Very good.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You just keep knocking him out, right?
That's it.